Hello, this is Greg Allison, Bring Greg's Garden and Worm Farm, coming to you from my home office. I'm going to show you a video on raised bed gardening. I'm going to talk about why it's important to do raised bed gardening, how to go about raised bed gardening. And in this video, you're going to see how my garden this year is really a recovery project. Last year I had a Power Grid Defense Conference. I did a lot of overtime work. And my gosh, the garden just grew up with weeds, like, 5-foot tall summer cedars. It had briars. It had, Johnson grass. That's the most awful thing in the world. It had Johnson grass all in it, regular grass. It had blackberry bushes, and it was awful. I just didn't have any time to deal with it. So it's a challenge when you are trying to run a market garden. I was building my greenhouse. That was my main project when I had free time, sitting in the aquaponics system. What you're going to see in this upcoming video is what I was doing in March, a little bit later than I wanted to. It was later March. So I had to take some shortcuts because really I would like to get the garden started earlier. There's a lot of preparation work I'd like to have done that I didn't have time to do because, among other things, it had been raining. We had just like continuous rain for weeks on end. And I just couldn't find any dry time to get out in the garden and work. So I didn't do everything I normally would have done. I took some shortcuts just to get it jump started and get it going. And you'll see some of that. You know, you got to work with the flow. You got to be flexible when you garden. You got to roll with what Mother Nature gives you and what your time and schedule allows. And you're going to see that. In fact, the garden was so bad, I came close to having it bulldozed. I just thought about raising the whole thing. Why? Because it was full of weed seeds. Every one of those summer cedars just threw out tens of thousands between all these different weeds, millions of seeds. All these seeds are going to produce weeds. It's stuff I'm going to have to fight all year long. And so I decided instead to do a recovery project. So I'm going to get into it, and you're going to see how I went about trying to get the garden established this year, the things I was doing. And you'll see this video is going to focus more on the raised bed aspects of it. I will produce another video here real soon, things I've already shot about planting radishes and such and so forth. And I'll be showing you gardening videos throughout the summer mixed in with my other stuff. We got it cleaned up some back in here, but there's still a lot of seed and root in here to contend for with. Back there, you get some hint of the way it looked, and you may see a little bit more of this in some of my videos. It's going to be in this system because I actually recorded most of the video for this series before I did this intro. Watch this through. A lot of good information in here, how to set up your raised bed gardens, what to do, many tips, and be sure to subscribe to my channel if you're not already subscribed. YouTube likes to unsubscribe people, double check that, and bang the update notification bell because we're going to do a lot more videos on this, on aquaponics, on prepping, bushcraft, things about our power grid, all across the sun. These are all tied together because you got to know how to raise your food if you want to survive for the long term. No doubt about it. Plus, you know what you're eating. This is a lot better approach to your health, is to raise your own food. And it's a very rewarding experience to raise your own food. It's a skill you need to develop. And so, also, I will cover prepping. I will cover many aspects. In fact, for prepping, I do have links below to my Patriot Supply. There's also links to true leaf markets for garden seeds. And if you want to raise worms for your garden, to make your own best garden compost, you don't have to buy fertilizer, greengregs.com, my website. I sell worms. Check links below. So why use a raised bed for a garden space? What are the advantages to a raised bed? There are many advantages to a raised bed. Primarily, it offers you the potential, if you row crop and everything's in rows, and when you walk up and down the middles, you're compressing the soil, which compresses the roots of the plants. Compressed soil does not grow stuff nearly as well. It's light, fluffy soil. Nowhere near as well. There have been growers that claim that if they put a single footprint in a raised bed, that it would cut their production by 50% for that bed, just from the shock of the compression through the bed. So it is important that a bed have nice, fluffy soil. And it's hard to do that in a row crop bed. Also, you can plant a lot denser in a raised bed. For example, if you notice, a lot of the planting guys say, you can plant stuff by 1 or 2 inches by a foot. Well, that foot is for the middle for you walk down. If you don't have the middle, you can plant everything at the highest density, like 1 inch by 1 inch or 2 inches by 2 inches. And that's how I'm planting in here. For example, look at those onions over here. See, they're planted at those kind of densities, and they grow fine. In fact, they could have been a little denser.
and you can see onions here. I'm setting out turmeric in here, onions in here, there's bulbs in here, and I'm putting out some little green onions that's got the shaft on them in here right now. So another advantage of a raised bed is that you can, it will drain much better. Plants don't want to sit there and soak in water. So excess water drains out just like the holes in a flower pot. And here in areas where we get a lot of rain, that's very important. In some areas of permaculture, they emphasize swales, and that's a major thing of permaculture, to retain water in their soil. Here in the southeast, the problem is to get rid of it. It's the opposite problem. The swales aspect of permaculture is of limited application here in my region of the country. So, but they have nothing against raised beds either, so that's a good thing. And this is a very organic way to grow things. You can see I'm using logs for my sides. When these logs finish rotting out, I'll just push them on the inside and put block or rock or something else on the outside, and they will become part of a hugelkultur system, providing rich nutrients to the soil, because trees pull minerals from deep down, minerals that get depleted in typical gardening and farming. You know, magnesium is one of the greatest dietary deficiencies in America, and it causes a lot of heart problems, like accelerated heartbeat and things like that. I used to have problems with that until I learned about it and started eating tree nuts and drinking coconut water. Took care of that for me. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not offering you any kind of medical advice. That's my big disclaimer. I'm just telling you what worked for me. But we do have a bad magnesium deficiency in American diet. But in any event, so that's where trees and wood in your raised beds comes in value too. I actually have logs down the center of most of these raised beds, and I have thrown other wood chunks in them. So this is not just a pure raised bed, it's a semi-hugelkultur. And will be more so when I roll these logs in when they rot out more in the future. So that's the good thing about these beds. Are about 30-36 inches in the middle, which is fair. You don't want them any wider than that because you really can't reach everything in them. And I still wind up working from one side and then coming back and I'm working from the other side. I got these nice middles. Every other middle is designed where I could pull out like a lawnmower type vehicle with pulling a trailer down it when I get old and unable to pull things, if that day should ever come. So I can work the beds and dump things in them. You can see the other alternate beds, like right here, you got about a foot between these beds to work with. Just enough foot space to walk in, although right here is a little bit more. So it gives you a little idea about raised beds, about space, and about why to use them and how to plant them. All these beds are now prepared with a good addition, about a wheelbarrow per about 12-foot section of bed of worm castings and some peat moss mixed in to give it a dressing over an inch thick. That's a good feeding for the plants to be planted, and should last all season. I may come back and dust it with some rock dust and other things. Now you can see this is good stuff here. It's all mixed up, and it's mostly worm castings more than anything. So I've got to prepare this bed a little bit for planting. It's too clumpy here. I'm going to smooth it out with this rake. We didn't till this. We dug the weeds out. I don't do any tilling here. I may use I got a big fork I can use to aerate this stuff, but it's not a broad fork. Here's why it's important to go through your garden beds carefully by hand and really see what's in them, because sometimes things get missed. Look at this. This looks like Johnson grass. It was a Johnson grass root. I didn't get enough of it out. Where's it at? I'll find it. There it is. Well, there's more of it. The rest of it go. These tubers, ribosomes, whatever the heck they are, the ribosomes, they will grow more Johnson grass. So get as much of that stuff out of your garden as you possibly can. Several of those wants to be a brand new shoot. Look at that to come up. Invade my garden. Look at that. 1, 2, 3. 3 shoots on there and more could form. Throw them in a road over there. Johnson grass. Man, that'll tear your garden up. They'll take over like nothing. It grows tall as corn, almost. And they are extremely invasive. But you get that stuff in your garden, it may take you years to get all that stuff out. Anyway, pay close attention to Johnson grass. And that's why it's important to dig into the roots. Get your hands dirty. Don't ever let these blackberries get started in your garden. That's what this is. It's a little fresh little blackberry shoot. Get them up while you can. And, well, probably a root down here somewhere. Belongs to that. There it is. Get down and find a root. Pull it up, because more will come upwards from that. Get as much as you can. Oh, look at all that. See what I got there? Nice little gift. I made a whole bunch more blackberries in my garden. There's some more. A bunch of them here on the outside I'm going to have to deal with. I'll get them later. So when you're working these garden beds, don't ever put your foot or hand down in the middle of the bed. That compresses it. Now, fortunately, with these nice logs, I'm able to sit on this as I work. Now, you may have to have some other little provisions to kneel beside it. They make little benches for that, by the way, or you can make your own, or people get by knee pads so they can kneel beside their garden bed. But fortunately, with these logs, I can sit on them. That makes them really nice as I'm working, or if I can put my hand on them. Occasionally, I got a log running through the center. I can, in certain areas, I can put my hand on that because it does not compress the soil. So that gives you some idea about working these beds. Little green onions can be set out every 2 to 4 inches. Like I said, that's about the ideal spacing. It's a little bit more than there. So what you can do is, I got one here, is you can set them out in a raised bed both ways, of course. And another, I showed you how to use your fingers. If you don't want to stick your finger in the ground, you can always use a stake. Sometimes a stake makes a nice little hole, and you can just drop, especially if you got these kind of skinny, and you know, boy, I tell you what, sometimes I need 3 hands. If you want to drop these in, look there, just go right in the hole, close it up just like that. See how simple that was? Nothing to it. You don't even have to get dirt on your fingernails. That takes half the fun out of it, though, you know. Nothing more fun than getting dirt on your fingernails. It's part of gardening, right? I'm sure I got plenty there already, so it's gonna be a little 2-onion deal there, I guess. So there we go. They all get tangled up. So how you do it? Whoop. You try not to pull them up. There we go. I'm using my finger again. So I like to get my fingers dirty again. Oh, did I mention I'm a germaphobe? Anyway, that's how you can set onions out with a little stake. Any kind of little plastic stake, stick, rod, work just as well. With your raised beds, it's best to water things real heavy, maybe once a week if you can get away with that. Water them like they're getting a whole inch of rainfall. And if you don't water them too often, what that means is the roots will dive down real deep. Now, don't use chlorinated water directly in your raised beds if you're trying to do organic, because the network of bacteria and mycelium in your soil is important. You don't want to kill it, or your earthworms. So I use garden filters to filter that stuff out. Check them and see how they're rated. When you order them, I get mine off eBay. One day I'll probably offer my own. But garden filters are really indispensable to keeping down the chlorine content, so that also sodium fluoride. Find something that filters the sodium fluoride out if you can. But you don't want to kill the biome in your garden bed, because, as I mentioned before, good soil is living soil. That is the key to good organic gardening. So water heavy about once a week. Now, I'm in the southeast here. When it gets hot and dry in the middle of the summer, it might be important to water once a day. So you can bear that in mind. Also watch your hoses as you drag them around. They'll grab your plants and tear them up. So that's what's important to know, is water regular, water deep, maybe once a week initially. If you're getting rainfall, where you're getting an inch a week, you're good. We had tons of rainfall into this past week. Now suddenly, it rained last night, but it didn't even come up to anything in my little scale, so essentially it didn't rain. In any event, now so you got an idea about watering your... I have about 200 feet of hose here to reach from my all-weather water faucet back there that I installed last fall, with a ground pipe running about 200 feet from the house, 230 feet. You can see I got a filter there. And this hose is about 200 feet long. Why 200 feet? I got some of it stretched back there. I have to pull it back when I pull it out of these rows. And then it's so I can get to the back side of that upper garden, which it needs a lot of work still. But that's the also do irrigation system some years. Didn't last year because didn't really garden last year, and some years you don't need it. But I got a box here that I put all the valves in, and all the valves are taken out right now so it won't be winterized, or so it wouldn't freeze. But I'll show you that one if I set it back up later. An important thing to know about hose care is after you shut your water off, and this is one of those frost-free faucets, got to be real careful. I don't want to break it, snap at the bottom. Got too much torque on it. They are vulnerable to that. When you thought for care of the faucets, but for your hoses, especially in the hot summer, don't leave them pressurized with water in them. Always drain them out. Good tip in hose care. Get the pressure off of them. Because if they're pressurized with water and they get hot and this water expands, it'll rupture your hose. And these long, big hoses are expensive. You sure don't want to just rupture them because you forgot to depressurize them. This is what my garden beds look like before I got started. A lot of them growing up real bad. Just reach under the roots and grab it and pull up all the root you can pull up with it, because new blackberry vines come up in the roots. My oldest brother Jimmy likes to use a claw hammer with straight claws on it to pull up a blackberry bush. Let's see how well I can do that. And can I video it at the same time? Now this is a good sized bush here. I gotta watch this hose pipe. I don't want to tear it up. See if I can get under the roots here. There's another hose pipe. Alright. If I can get under here with this thing. Well, I didn't get as much root as I would have if I'd done it by hand. That's the way to get the bush up, but it didn't get all the root up. So I judge that. Well, if you don't get your hands in there, that kind of sort of works. But there must be better methods. That's why I like using my hands. I got to get that out, and I can't do it with one hand. But anyway, there we are. Claw hammer to get a blackberry bush out.